Hello class, this is my TED Talk about being disabled, which is relating to what defines happiness to me. So initially, I did not have any idea about what I could relate to happiness. Then someone suggested that I talk about my disability, so I figured, why not? What defines happiness? Well, it's kind of a very broad question because happiness is different for every individual. Each person's version is affected by their own experiences, beliefs, or the other events of their life. In my case, it is affected by my physical disability, cerebral palsy, which is a very broad description of the disability because all it means is brain damage. So it's kind of like a tree with many different branches because basically there are many different types of cerebral palsy and many different severity. In my case, I am a spastic quadriplegic, which is basically meaning that I cannot control my limbs, but I can still feel it. That's right, I actually feel it when I run into a door and my hands hit the door in the classroom every day when I come in. I know, isn't that shocking? I am someone who is tense and focused, and yet I may appear stressed, but I'm not actually stressed. I'm merely trying to control my limbs, which shake constantly and move, even when I don't want them to. You might have noticed that they're bound to the wheelchair, and that is for your safety more than mine. Because of my spasms, my limbs are like springs, and they're always ready to release. I am strong and I have knocked people to the floor. So, oh no, people think I'm going to hit them. So, safety first. I also have a nonverbal learning disability, which means I don't pick up on social cues. And I don't always process social situations in the same way as everyone else. So basically I have no filter. Just imagine how much fun that is. I'm visibly disabled and I have no social filter. Let me tell you, some really funny situations and really awkward ones have resulted from this. Most people don't ask what disability I have, and when I ask them what they thought I had, their constant and common answers have been polio, spina bifida, or just a quadriplegic, which means I can't feel anything in my body. I suppose that they should have more than 3 guesses, but life is not Jeopardy. I've seen the ignorance of people towards the disabled. Let me ask you this, have you ever been looked at like you're a lesser being? Or like you're a monster? I have. And of all places, at the grocery store. When they see me, sometimes mothers will pull their children away in fear and glare at me as they walk away. It's not like I'm an amoeba or I'm Frankenstein. I'm a normal person. I don't let it bother me anymore. You know why? Because I know they're ignorant and afraid of what they do not understand. And I also know this will always be a problem because ignorance never fully leaves society, no matter how much we would want it to. So I live with what is given. In many ways, I am lucky. I have met people with very severe disabilities, every different kind of disabilities, and people who aren't disabled who are so far worse off than I ever will be. I mean, I can think, eat independently, and, process things at a typical level. And I can talk. So, I'm going to school, which many people I know aren't that lucky. So I guess I'm lucky, but the media, they would not make you think so. The way the disabled are thought of in any culture is significantly influenced by media. This is interesting because there are 3 common roles. First, there is the victim. Perhaps the most important stereotype of persons with disabilities in the media is the victim, regarded as an object of pity or helpless and meant to be pitied or sympathetic. The second common stereotype would be the hero, which is the flip side of the stereotype of the victim, because this character, it is a character who proves his or her worth by overcoming their disability. And finally, and this is the one I get the most food out of, the villain. Throughout history, people with physical disabilities have been used to suggest evil or depravity, which can include images of pirates having missing hands, eyes, or legs. Children's classics are particularly graphic and concrete in this regard. Villains are always ugly or deformed in some way, and heroes and heroines are possessed of beauty and grace. Disney has frequently promoted disability to be used as a metaphor, and a review of our cultural forms of expression provide evidence of the metaphorical role of disability, which is deeply ingrained in our social values. It has been a convention of all literatures and art that physical deformity, chronic illness, or any physical defect symbolizes an evil or malevolent nature and monstrous behavior, of course. An example in popular culture of a disabled victim would be Tiny Tim, from A Christmas Carol. An example of a popular culture of a disabled hero would be the blind hero, comic book hero called Daredevil. And an example of a popular culture of a disabled villain would be Darth Vader. One of the more well-known examples of a disabled person who has been portrayed by the media as a victim would be Tracy Latimer. Tracy Latimer was murdered by her father, Robert Latimer, in the early 1990s. Latimer told police that he did it. He said he loved his daughter and could not bear to watch her suffer from a severe form of cerebral palsy. So he placed her in the cab of his Chevy pickup, ran a hose from the exhaust to the cab, climbed into the box of the truck, sat on a tire, and watched her die. Tracy was a 40-pound quadriplegic, a 12-year-old who functioned at the level of a 3-month-old. She has been repeatedly operated on, and at the time of her murder was due for more surgery, this time to remove a thigh bone. She could not talk, walk, or feed herself, though she responded to affection, and occasionally she smiled. Tracy was in constant, excruciating pain, yet for reasons not entirely clear, could not be treated with a painkiller stronger than Tylenol. The killing of Tracy Latimer has been called an act of compassionate homicide. Others have warned that giving Latimer any leniency in his trial would show that people with disabilities are regarded as second-class citizens. Now, regardless of people's views on euthanasia, which I know is a very touchy topic for some people, I'm sure that anyone would agree that if someone is suffering incredibly and unable to communicate with their surroundings, then there are very few options. The reason I tell you this example is because I've known someone since childhood who is far more severely disabled than Tracy, and I cannot imagine the pain that her parents suffer on a daily basis because they have to watch their kid go through agony every day. In contrast, a character that is disabled and yet manages to not let it stop him and therefore is portrayed like a normal person and someone who is more relatable than the supposed normal characters would be Tyrion Lannister of HBO's Game of Thrones. He is funny, intelligent, and has more morality than most of the characters on the show. He sees situations as most people would, such as his disgust at the dwarf fighting show at Joffrey's wedding in season 4. All of this affects me because I'm disabled. All the popular culture examples show how the disabled are portrayed in media, and I care about how the disabled are portrayed. It doesn't necessarily change my idea of happiness, but it might give uninformed people the wrong perception about people with disabilities, thereby altering the way they interact with us and the way we interact with them. I know there are people whose disabilities prevent them from experiencing happiness, but most of us can and do experience happiness. I am happy. Every day I try not to laugh, because when you hear others talk about their plans for the weekend, or whenever there's a party that people are going to that's mentioned, or prom, or basically like people talking or claiming to have had sex. This is what I hear, and I'm someone who doesn't do much on the weekend, someone who's never been invited to a party ever. And certainly not someone who would go to prom. As for the sex, the disability somewhat complicates that. I'm someone who would just chill at home on the weekend, partially because of my disability, partially because of where I live, which I live in the country, which is in the middle of nowhere, and which kind of makes going places not a simple task. I'm someone who's not really a partier, doesn't really like crowds, and would prefer to simply read a book on Friday night instead of going to a party. I'm someone who probably would skip prom next year when I graduate, because I really don't see any point in it. And because it's not my thing, and knowing me, I'd probably end up going alone, and that's just kind of pathetic. As to the having sex, well, let's put it this way. I would love to, but given my disability and like my spasms and everything, I would probably hurt the girl I was having sex with, so I'd have to be bound. No 50 Shades Red Room references intended, of course. Instead, I would definitely have to have someone who is caring and willing, obviously. The funny thing about happiness is the definition evolves as we evolve. So let me explain what I would call happiness right now. Reading books, having fun with friends, watching television, going to a party if I ever get invited to one, which I don't see happening. Finding a girlfriend and having sex. So that really isn't different from most other grade 12 students.